Hey, welcome to the Burda Festival podcast powered by Afikra Podcast. My name is Mikey Muhanna. I'm the host of today's conversation. Wow, what a conversation we have in store for you today. It is with the one and only Minister of Culture and Youth in the United Arab Emirates, Her Excellency Noura Al Kaabi. This conversation is about the minister's work, the work of the ministry itself, the history of the festival, and I can't wait for you to have a listen. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and I hope to see you at the festival soon. Welcome, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. It is a real pleasure to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me.
So I guess the best place to start is, in your mind, what is the way that you would describe the purpose of the festival to a teenager? If there was a teenager that you sort of came across and said, I saw the logo, what is Al Burda Festival?
So the reason we have the Burda Festival is, one of the main reasons is how can we explain the art and the culture of Islam to our youth and to a teenager or to our international audience. And it simply is a festival where we celebrate arts, culture, music, food in Islam, how Islam is a way of living. And it's not just religion, but it's as well, and a very important chapter in many colorful chapters that we celebrate in the Burda Festival. So I welcome everyone to get to know Islam in a total different perspective, a perspective of celebration and pride.
Within Afikra, we think a lot about cultivating curiosity and not necessarily celebrating the culture of the Arab world or sort of promoting it outward, but really trying to promote it inwards and say, if you're interested in being a part of this culture, ahla wa sahla, everyone is welcome. But it takes a little bit of work. You have to roll up your sleeves. So I'm curious about sort of the ministry's team that has been working on Al Burda for years now. I'm curious how the team's sort of internal understanding of Islam has changed over the years.
Well, I think let's start with the inception of this, not festival, but an award. It started with an award, Mikey. It started with an award that was established in 2004, which is under the support or patronage of His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed, our foreign minister. Of course, he used to be the minister also of media and culture. And from there was a need of let's say, spreading more of an awareness or celebrating the Islamic art in calligraphy, in poetry, in classic poetry, in modern poetry, and ornamentation. So those categories were more of, let's say, of a way to sustain such a craft or an art. And for the past 14 years, there was a culmination of beautiful artwork and poetry of winners from various countries that celebrate Islam as a culture and art. And the best thing out of it is, of course, having it as an award, but owning a beautiful collection of artwork and calligraphy that the ministry showcases during the Burda Festival. Now, your question is why are we celebrating this festival? And the celebration also came with, how can we mark the date that celebrates the Prophet's birth with music? You will surprisingly get some group of people against celebrating the Prophet's birth. And it's never a moment, there is a moment of silence when you respect the death of someone, but there is the moment of celebrating that someone. And why are we celebrating the Prophet Muhammad is because of everything he called for. or everything that any prophet called for in terms of the values of tolerance, coexistence, doing, your good deeds,
Yeah.
I think we're all similar when it comes to each prophet. It's just the timing difference and the different kind of way of passing the message through. So, and especially in Islam, I mean, this is a religion that till today, there's this huge misperception. And, we're not here to talk about the misperception. We're here to talk about how can I shed a light or undim the room and showcase, a beautiful kind of aspect of Islam. So celebrating the Prophet birth with the award was an idea. And in the UAE, we have a beautiful tradition, a folklore tradition. We call it al-Malad al-Imarati, or al-Mulid, where they call it in certain other countries. So you have a group of men who sit in parallel, facing one another in a semi-triangular form. And they start chanting and singing poetry, using drums, in a beautiful Sufism way of expressing love and admiration to the Prophet. And that is a tradition that was supported since the days of our founding father. He used to go to those homes and he used to support the Malad group. Until today, they're supported because it's part of your intangible heritage that you need to also to preserve and sustain. Sorry, I'm
No.
about more of the past of why are we doing this, because there was a reason and there's still a reason, but you evolve. And today we're 2021 and the first version of El Burda Festival was in 2018. And that was the moment where we said, yeah, but who knows about the Burda Award? Why don't we amplify what we're doing? And that when the internal team and us decided, let's do a festival. Let's look at partners, institutions, universities, who will talk about religion, Islam, in a more of a way that showcase its way of living through the what I mentioned, through the architecture talks, through food talks, through fashion, through calligraphy, through modern typography and calligraphy, through an endowment with modern artists, contemporary artists, such as an installation or a photography or whatever it is, because this is when you're engaging audience that are outside of the group of audience who are very much skilled in typography or calligraphy, and therefore you widen the conversation to a bigger group. And I still remember our first version, because we're having our second version soon. But I remember our first version, when we checked the ratio of participation from institutions or experts about Islamic culture, they were mostly non-Arabic speakers.
Interesting.
And that for us was a aha moment of why did we always put Islam in a corner, in one corner, or what are we missing here, and how can we take the conversation to the next level?
So if you think about the planning stages of the festival this year, so just to summarize a little bit of what you talked about, there are these three sort of legs of the table for Al Burda. There's the award, there's the festival, and there's the endowment. In many ways, they're all propping up the mission and the vision of the festival. If you think about sort of the evolution of the festival as an idea, this year's theme is liminal. The festival, and for those of you who don't know what that means, it's this state that's sort of in transition. And it's to suggest that there is some boundary and threshold that's being crossed. From your perspective, why is that an appropriate theme for the festival and for the broader work of Al Burda, especially at the sort of crossroads that the UAE stands with Expo 2020? This does feel like almost a sort of a transitional year. And so I'm curious why you think that is appropriate.
I think it's,
and maybe I misread it entirely.
No, you described it perfectly. Well, and the reason why we chose the liminal kind of a theme is because we are, I believe, in a time where it's a huge transition, and we did put the pandemic into the context, Mickey. We did look at the pandemic as a context, and we put not only the pandemic but what this country is going through. Currently I'm speaking to you in Expo 2020. We are in 2021, but it's an event that is welcoming the world in such times. And in a few days, Mickey, we're celebrating the country's jubilee. I think we're this kind of momentum of transition from one place to another. Currently, 3 Abrahamic family houses are being built in Abu Dhabi and Saadiyat Island. The mosque, the church, and the synagogue. So for me, as even in my hometown in Abu Dhabi, and building such beautiful 3 homes by Sir David Ajay, and one of them is a synagogue, is something that I've never imagined that will happen. I think there are many reasons why we want to show that it's really important to hit the reset button and transition to have conversations that might be easy or conversations that might be difficult, but never stop those conversations and those inspired talks. We might disagree in many things and we might agree in many things, but we'll mostly disagree if there's an element of, let's say, more of an unfortunate political discussion. Okay. Yeah. But what connects us is culture. What connects us is Islam as a religion that from its inception, it's a religion that welcomed all religion from the days of the Prophet Muhammad, from the lessons that came out of his even his personal life. Everything embodies being open to everyone, no matter where you come from. But what happened, it started diminishing day by day. It darkened in recent history with extremists who call themselves building a fake caliphate. And that by itself, it really stained our religion in a horrible way. And for us to, I'm not going to say defend our religion, but defend our humanity, the purpose of such religion or any religion. Mm-hmm. Yet raise the level of values and ethics more than anything else. So I'll give you an example. So yeah, back then when I was, we were growing up, so we celebrate the Prophet's birth by a day off in the UAE. Okay, but yeah. What do you do in the day off? Do you what would you do? Would you read the Quran, or would you just read or watch, I don't know, an Islamic kind of a seminar or whatever it is? Or yeah, it's okay to do that, but why wouldn't you know about a beautiful Andalusian building and the architecture and the inspiration of that architecture to jewelry, and the inspiration of that jewelry to fashion, and why was certain kind of food really important in such era or whatsoever? Mm-hmm. What kind of calligraphy that is used to write the Quran, or how was it covered? Those nuances that makes a religion beautiful, and not beautiful, relevant to who is Muslim and non-Muslim.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry for the long answer, but I think this is what we're trying to transit to. I mean, that's the transitional kind of a form of all the context that I mentioned, the challenges, and in terms of what's next, because we need to evolve and we need to always revive the conversation. It shouldn't plateau. It should always be engaging and addressing different type of audience at the same time.
How do you guys think about success? I mean, there's a lot of work, a lot of planning that goes into something like this festival. It is jam-packed with programming. It is a overwhelmingly rich festival. There are a lot of very noble and lofty goals that we're talking about right now. How do you sort of think about if we did a good job?
Well, definitely on the 3 days is checking the level of engagement from our audience, whether they're within the festival or outside of the festival, and from that engagement, what comes out of it. Will we have I don't know, students or institutions or partnerships that will that will help us to build on the program. So we're building on it, or we're building on it in a way that is not just during the festival but outside the festival. So last year, 2 years before, is how, for example, there was a music festival in New York Arts Center, and this is where we wanted to partner of getting musicians that are very much specialized in Islamic or a way of celebrating Islam in their music. Or let's say with the endowment, how it goes from one place to another. So we had our virtual exhibition of Al Burda endowment last year. So it's continuing the layering up of Al Burda's events, performances, and topics, and making sure that they're like a beautiful tree that grows and blossoms. And I think for me personally is, when you go to I don't know if this is the right example, but you go to a museum and you look at certain, I don't know, artifacts or beautiful, colorful, huge statuses, and say, oh, those are the glorious days of X, Y, and Z. This is the glory days of, I don't know. I think this is where Al Burda should be, how we celebrate the glory of Islam. It's the glory.
And the glory is, the idea is that to understand that there is so much potential ahead of us, right? There's a growth element, there's an optimism to the programming that's very obvious, that it's at once, interested in looking at Andalusian architecture, but also interested at thinking about who are the great architects celebrating Islam in the next century to come. Who are the great calligraphers in the next century, who are the great musicians of the next century as well. With that in mind, it's impossible to go to the UAE in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 without feeling a palpable discussion, a societal discussion about the next 50 years. It is a very forward-looking society right now, thinking and imagining and projecting forward. I'm curious from your perspective, Your Excellency, how does Al Burda sort of, the festival as well as the entire organization, represent that positioning for the UAE going forward as sort of being a global center, not necessarily only a regional center or a local center, but a global center for arts and culture, specifically the arts and culture of Islam?
I mean, with us, as you mentioned, celebrating the Jubilee soon is looking at the values that we believe in as in the UAE since inception. So it's a country that opened its arm to the world from day one, with the founding fathers looking at experts from different parts of the world to help them, either from an urban planning to infrastructure to factories to hospitals, teachers, politicians, everything. I mean, you're talking about, if you count the number of schools in 1971 in Abu Dhabi itself, just few schools, and you're talking about the inception of the country. So that requires individuals who are welcomed in the country, and again, the father, making sure that they consider the UAE home. It's not a transactional relationship. It's an existential relationship. It's a relationship that, we rely on you because you're supporting us. And it's not where the clients or whatsoever, the language that we use those days. So from that fundamental kind of a start of a nation comes the people who come from different backgrounds, from different ethnicities, from different religions, and how that was, being built in a way that is protected in a policy against hatred and discrimination. A policy, and in the beginning, like more than 4 years ago, I guess, we were criticized with such law. But today, I think if you don't have a law that protects anyone, and especially in this virtual hall of fame or a virtual hall of shame, and if you're and if you're not at least protecting, or at least living even this, applying a protection even in this virtual space, then we're missing the point here. And I think this is where we wanted to include something that connects with the UAE identity, which is the religion Islam. It's part of my identity, Mikey.
Yeah.
Not as a practice, not as practicing Islam, but as the country where it is, and where we, we're certain of what defines us as Emiratis, being an Arab, being Emiratis, being a Muslim. But now is we were at a point now where no, you're being an Emirati, or even non-Emirati, but if you consider the UAE home and you embody such values, then we want this to be your home. And I think we couldn't. It's not right not to. If you have a torch and a part of your identity is misrepresented in other places, or misjudged due to the actions of other people, and I do have the torch in my pocket, I think it's going to be it's unfair not to shed some light and show the beauty of it, and it will be never because of a religion. It will be always due to the action of individuals who chose blocking ideas, extremism, certain ideology, a certain way of justifying the ends of a bad action. And I think this is where we're trying to, in the UAE, to practice coexistence the same way we did it since day one.
Do you expect that most of the guests at the festival will be Emiratis?
No, the festival. It's. The guests will be definitely multinationals. From speakers, from audience, and Mickey. In my classroom in third grade, I was in a class where we were only 5 Emiratis. So. I was speaking till fourth grade in an Egyptian dialect because my best friend was Egyptian. So, no, this country is always about multinational.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about. Sorry, there's a Adan in the background. I don't know. It's apropos given our discussion. Yeah. So I'm curious about the different parts of the award, because oftentimes people think festival, okay, great, it's just a festival. But the award has been since the inception of Al Burda, and it remains a big part of it. Is there any way to shed a little light on how the awardees are chosen, the different parts of it, and what that award really is supposed to represent?
Sure. So the awards are, as mentioned, we have 4 categories of the award.
Yeah.
One is the One is calligraphy. So, of course, the beauty of calligraphy is really an art that is not necessarily being perfected by individuals who speak Arabic frequently. You have certain nations uh, that are instilling such talent in such a young age, whether it's in countries like Turkey and Iraq, Iran, Egypt, Sudan. You have certain kind of a path that is kind of instilled in such a young age, and that by itself is as well, not focusing on the more of the art side than the language side. So calligraphy is a big portion. Secondly is classic poetry and modern poetry. Both poetries, Mickey, is the theme is in love to the Prophet. A love letter or a love poem to the Prophet. And the fourth is ornamentation, where it's the beauty miniature of beautiful designs, the similar ones you see maybe in the cover of a Quran or inside the Quran, but by hundred. It's just condensed and beautiful, and as well there is some calligraphy in it. I can't wait to showcase those four categories, or the two categories, let's say, that we can display, the calligraphy and the ornamentation, to our guests when they visit the festival. And I can't wait to announce the winners. So you asked, how do we decide? We have great judging panels in all categories, in poetry and calligraphy and ornamentation, and they come from a very strong and solid background based on the category.
And going forward in the days running up, I mean, we're only a few days away from the festival. Are there any specific events or guest speakers that you, Your Excellency, have sort of marked on your calendar of like, oh, I can't wait for this one? I mean, I'm happy about everyone, but I'm excited about learning at this event, or having people learn or hear from this person at the festival. Any people that the listeners should mark on their calendar as like, they're all going to be great, but this one I'm particularly excited about?
I urge everyone to just keep an eye on our social media account, Al Burda, or website, alburda.ae. We have a great list of speakers coming up. And for me personally, I can't wait for the performances. We're having also performances that are really fun. I wish I can tell you, but that the team are going to kill me, because we're in the process of just finalizing everything.
Yeah.
And of course, the award itself, the ceremony itself. So please watch the space, and I assure you, if you're able to visit, please register. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an Expo 2020. You're going to be able to connect and meet many people and be enlightened with many stories that I hope to inspire you. And if not, watch us on this virtual screen.
Great. So this is my last question. Our relationship with the Ministry of Culture and Youth has always been a really positive one. Afikra is all about connecting people from across borders to celebrate their shared interests in understanding the region's histories and cultures. Expo 2020 is all about bringing people in a single space to learn about each other. And so I'm very curious about how you think the fact that Al Burda Festival is at Expo 2020 this year will sort of shape in a almost unrepeatable way the effect and the nature of the festival. And for those listeners who haven't been to Expo 2020, paint a little bit of a picture what they should be able to expect, and why that relationship is so exciting.
Well, the first thing, Mikey, is Expo 2020 is about connecting minds, connecting people. And I think this is at the heart and core of what we do at the Ministry of Culture and what you do at afikra, how you connect people and you connect minds. So that by itself is a very strong reason to choose Expo. It's a historic event in my lifetime as an Emirati to have an Expo in the country, and for our audience, if you want to know what Expo is you'll be in a city. You'll feel that you visited a city. You just have 192 countries in the city, beautiful spaces, and the breeze is so good right now, Mickey. The weather is getting better.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Excellent food, great coffee. Just getting into those pavilions that are, again, all about conversations about the future is as well. Mind kind of, stimulates your mind and makes the event just fit in perfectly with Expo 2020.
Can I ask you one last question?
Of course.
Okay. And just to leave it on a slightly more personal note, for those listeners who are unable to see the screen, you have a smile from ear to ear when you talk about the pride that you have, right? Your pride is palpable. Your excitement is palpable. And specifically, you said that you're proud as an Emirati. I'm curious, if you think back to that third grader in that classroom with her Egyptian accent, if you think back to that third grader who became a 12-year-old, who became a teenager, you think back to those days, what do you think that young girl, before she became a minister, what do you think she would have said and sort of thought about what's happening now?
Well, that it was a dream, and we're now living the dream with our people, the people that are Emiratis or consider the UAE home. And as we call them in the UAE pavilion, the dreamers who do. So each one of us is a dreamer who do. And yeah, back then it would have been a dream, a beautiful dream.
Thanks so much. Your Excellency, thank you so much for all of your work. It's been an inspiration to me for quite some time. I've told you that many times. I'll continue to tell you that. This is the first episode of our podcast with the Al Burda Festival. We are featuring many other guests who will be at the festival on the podcast. We're excited about it. And I'll be there as well. I'm moderating one of the panels. So we encourage everyone to check it out. Do you have any parting wisdom or words for the listeners?
I'll just say that 2021 will wrap up soon. We're still living a pandemic, but we're reliving it differently. And I think it's the way we should rethink of how we act with one another, how we talk with one another, and how it's really important that we never, ever take anything for granted, because you just don't know. We didn't plan. I mean, we planned everything, but we never planned the pandemic. And now we're watching the news. We're looking at there's a new variation with COVID. And if you want to protect others and you protect yourself, we never questioned when we were vaccinated when we were young in school. They just throw us and they vaccinate us, and we fill this card with vaccination, and we never ask where is it made, what does it contain, whatever it is. And today we're even questioning science. So let's be humble, and let's stick to our values, and let's relive and connect with one another, and never take anything for granted.
Perfect parting words. Your Excellency, thank you so much for making the time. This was a real thrill for us, and I'm so excited to be a part of the festival in a very small way, but I'm excited to be here with you.
Same here. Thank you, Mikey. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope to see you at the festival. For more information, go to burda.ae. That is burda.ae. The festival runs from December 19th to the 21st at the Dubai Exhibition Center as part of Expo 2020 Dubai. The festival is organized by the Ministry of Culture and Youth, UAE, and this podcast is powered by Afikra Podcasts. Take care.